Can Texas turn blue? They've got a superstar candidate running for Senate and Democratic Congressman Colin Allred there. You've got some good polling out of there. The latest Morning Consult had Congressmember Allred up 45% to 44% against Ted Cruz. It looks like Democrats are also putting a lot of resources into Texas as well. You had the second gentleman there. You have Willie Nelson leading efforts there. And then you have kind of Ted Cruz being Ted Cruz and saying things like this over the past few years. Let's play it.
Left is so bad. They're so unhappy. They're so pissed off. And by the way, if you were a liberal woman and you had to sleep with those weenies, you'd be pissed too.
I mean, serious times call for serious people, and that was so deeply unserious. But I want to call in a very serious person who knows Texas well, Democratic Congressman Colin Allred, who's running for Senate against that individual, Ted Cruz. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Wow. I actually had not seen that clip in a while. That's bad.
I've got some other ones to show you as well, but let's start with from the outset. Texas, can it turn blue? Is that just a wish? What are you actually seeing on the ground?
Yeah. Well, listen, we're ready to move on from Ted Cruz, and that's the thing that I want folks out there to know. You know, I'm a fourth generation Texan. I was born and raised in Dallas by a single mom who was a public school teacher. I played football at Baylor, was captain of the team, and made it to the NFL. And became a civil rights lawyer and have been serving in Congress for the last 6 years. So I think I have an expert opinion on who we are as Texans. And I know this. We believe in freedom. And what Ted Cruz has done in terms of taking away a woman's right to choose, in terms of attacking your right to retire with dignity, in terms of making it harder for folks to chase their version of the American dream, is not our Texas. And so that's why we're going to beat him. And so I encourage folks to go to colinallred.com, get involved with us. Because this is a good chance, of course, to get rid of someone like Ted Cruz, who's been, as you just showed, unserious about this job for so long, but also put somebody in there who will get to work for all 30 million of us as Texans and also for our country.
Yeah, getting to work for people of the state that you work for should be the job of, but Ted Cruz has been out there, promoting his podcasts all the time, trying to be like a stand-up comedian at the expense of Texas and people's lives suffering. We're seeing the devastation now with Hurricane Helene, and when Texas has gone through devastating situations as well, Ted Cruz abandoned the state. Then he joked about it. Like, here he is at CPAC, like joking that he went to Cancun when the state was actually in need. Here, let's play this one.
I gotta say, Orlando is awesome. It's not as nice as Cancun. But it's nice.
I guess it's just some weird stuff, Congressman, to watch that. Like, what do you make of that?
Well, that makes me angry. And I have to say that's something that most folks who know me will tell you is hard to do because, listen, a lot of Texans died during that winter storm. A lot of Texans had their lives severely interrupted. Every Texan I talk to can tell you exactly where they were during that freeze. And they can also tell you exactly where Ted Cruz was. And if you can just imagine having the awesome responsibility and privilege to represent 30 million Texans in the United States Senate, and then when a very rare event comes along, which is a statewide freeze that it impacts all over the state, which is very uncommon for us. So our state is so massive for us to have something that hits the entire state almost at the same time. And the lights go out in the energy capital of the world, and folks are burning their fence posts to stay warm. They're dying because they're bringing generators indoors, and they're dying from carbon monoxide poisoning because they didn't realize that bringing that indoors was going to kill them. And that you think that's a good time to go on vacation. The only reason he came back, and the only reason anyone knows about this, was because some folks put it online when they saw him in the airport, because they couldn't believe that their senator was going off to Cancun during a crisis like this. And he's come back. That's not the only joke I've heard him make about it. He's joked about it quite a bit, but it's not funny to Texans. And that's also why on November 5th, when we beat him, he can just go ahead and have as much time as he wants in Cancun. and do all the other things he wants to do instead of being a senator, which is what the actual job is.
Let's talk about the coalition that you're building in Texas. The way you describe it, similar to the language we use here on the MeidasTouch network, which is pro-democracy, freedom-loving Americans, and bringing this broader coalition together, which is different from some of the campaigns in the past that fell a little short. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you told me when I first ran for Congress back in 2018 that I'd be running for Senate a few years later with Liz Cheney endorsing and coming to Dallas and us doing an event together and us being genuinely friends, I would not have believed you. But I think your framing is the right one, which is that this is about more than partisanship. This is about more than what party you belong to in the past. We did go through, the last time we had a presidential election, we did not have a peaceful transfer of power for the first time in our history. I'm on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and I can tell you a lot of countries have elections. They just had an election in Venezuela. It's the transfer of power that's the hard part. Putin has elections in Russia. That's where your democracy reaches its pinnacle. And that's also what President Washington gave us when he walked away after 8 years. But, that's also on January 6th, what we saw interrupted not just by Donald Trump, but by Ted Cruz, who was the architect of the effort in the Senate to overturn an American presidential election. And so, Liz Cheney, for example, is a representative, I think, of many true conservatives, true patriots in our state and in our country. And what does that mean? That means that they believe in the Constitution. They believe in the rule of law. They believe that there are certain things that are more important than them, their party, or their personal ambition. And so I'm proud to have her as part of our coalition and other true conservatives like her in Texas who believe in our Constitution, and to understand that part of this every election is to look at what has this person done during the last term that they've been in office. And the last 6 years that Ted Cruz has been there, he's taken away a woman's right to choose. He fled to Cancun when we needed him most, and he tried to overturn an American presidential election. And if you do those things, then you got to lose your job. And we have to build a broad coalition to do it. It's not just Democrats, it's also independents, it's Republicans, it's folks who are exhausted by this nonsense. And you and I both know folks like this, I'm sure. I know I come across people all the time who are just tired of all of this craziness. They expect that people are working as hard as they are to try and get things done in elected office. And when they see folks like Ted Cruz, it makes them more cynical about not just what's going on in their community, but about our democracy as a whole. So if you believe in our system, if you believe in our democracy, then it's important that you go to colinallred.com and help us beat him.
You talk about, all these issues that people hire through elections, politicians who become members of Congress and Senate to fix the problems. And, then when Ted Cruz is talking about these issues, as I've been showing these clips, it's like, I could show you 1,000 of these and any one of them I think should be disqualifying. But again, it goes into what are you it's exhausting. It's what are you doing? I mean, before doing the MeidasTouch network, I was a lawyer. I can imagine going into court, being asked serious questions and issues. And then rather than engage with the issues, the other side's but did you hear that Mickey Mouse is having sex with Pluto? And this is all Disney's talking about. This is what Ted Cruz is talking about. Here, play it.
I think there are people who are misguided trying to drive, Disney stepping in saying, in every episode now they're going to have, Mickey and Pluto going at it. Really?
Thank you for that image, Senator.
But it's just come on, guys. These are kids, and you could always shift to Cinemax if you want that. Why do you have... It used to be, look, I'm a dad. You used to be able to put your kids on the Disney Channel and be all right, something innocuous will happen.
There's another point there, though, that I think I want to make differently with you on here. Obviously, that's crazy, and we can go into 100 clips and say how crazy and disqualifying it is. But the thing about that, whether it's Ted Cruz or Donald Trump, they're trying to project this image as they're alpha males and masculinity, which they portray as treating women with disrespect, bullying
That's
people, locker room talk is, sexually harassing people, and they try to normalize it. Let me just give your background here compared to Ted Cruz and Donald Trump's. As I said, after being the high school class president, football star at Baylor University, you were 5 seasons in the NFL, and then you quit the NFL to go to law school and then had an illustrious career. But you've played sports at the highest level. And so when Donald Trump and Ted Cruz try to say, oh, this is just how men are, this is like locker room talk, this is what bros do, but then they try to convince a generation, I'm sure you see this in Texas, they try to convince the college guys that this, what do you say to that?
That's right. And this is a big issue for me because I've got 2 boys and I'm raising them right now. My boys are 3 and 5. To be everything that these folks are, to be the opposite of everything these folks are, to not, be a bully, to not try and, put yourself first. And let me tell you something. I played in the NFL. I was a linebacker in the NFL. So you want to talk about, whatever your version of masculinity is, we can have this conversation all day. I spent my life around, folks who made their living off the sweat of their brow, not with button-down shirts and air conditioning. Okay, I know what it's like to shower after work, not before it. And let me tell you something. These folks have no idea what masculinity is. They're basing it on how weak they are, and they're projecting that onto everyone else. I was also the first member of Congress to ever take paternity leave. When we had our first son, Jordan, a month into my time in Congress, and I talked about how I was going to take leave. I wrote an op-ed about how important it was for fathers to take time away. And to be with their kids during these early days. I know this is something that you're going through right now. And I didn't even know at the time that I was going to be the first member of Congress to take paternity leave because I thought somebody else surely had done it. But apparently I was. And what I learned over the course of it was maybe if an NFL linebacker, a former NFL linebacker, can talk about the importance of changing diapers and being there for the parts that are not so much fun, then maybe that'll make some space for other men. That's being a leader in how to try and show a positive version of masculinity by empowering your spouse, by empowering women, by trying to make sure that you are there for your family. That's what we all really want and expect. Not picking on the most vulnerable in our society or putting people down because they're asking for equality or equity. That's not what masculinity is to me. And let me tell you also this: Ted Cruz would not last a second in a locker room. He would not last a second in an NFL locker room or my college locker room because we could spot guys like him a mile away. We called them me guys. The me guys were the ones who were always looking out for themselves first, who didn't care about the team, who thought that they were they were hot stuff. And they were also the ones who we would always find a way to kind of get them, chew them up and spit them out because we couldn't have them on our teams. And when I was captain of the football team at Baylor, and if I ever saw somebody like that, I'd go right at them. I'd go right at them until I broke down whatever was causing them to think they were so special and make them to get on board with the rest of us because we're trying to do something together. It's not about you. And we all have to remember that we are part of a cohesive community. As John Lewis used to tell us, we might have come here on different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. We're all Americans. And when you have leaders who think that they're more important than this entire project, a 250-year project that all of us, over 300 million of us are a part of, then you have to make sure that they are no longer in positions of leadership. And so we got less than 40 days here. And I want everyone to know that here in Texas, we can make sure we get rid of Ted Cruz. So get involved with us. Go to colinallred.com. If you're in Texas, make a plan to vote. Check your voter registration status. Make sure you get out to vote. We can do this.
Congressman, I just want to show the ad that you just dropped today. It was so powerful. I know we're running out of time, but I gotta show it, then get your quick reaction for it. Let's play it.
I'm Colin Allred, and I approve this message.
She would have been our 3rd baby.
My 2nd.
Our 1st.
Our 2nd and 3rd baby. Our baby would never survive.
And now my life was on the line.
And the care we needed was denied.
Because of Ted Cruz and the extremist abortion ban. A ban with no exception for rape, incest, or our health.
If you're experiencing pregnancy complications in Texas, you're in danger. It's that simple. And it's Ted Cruz and the anti-abortion extremists' fault.
I want to get your reaction to the ad that you put out. Why was it important to release that now?
Yeah. Well, I'm friends with all the folks who you just saw in that ad, and I am so they don't need me to be proud of them, but I am so proud of them because I can't imagine with my wife and I having had 2 boys in the last 5 years in Dallas, how we would have felt and whether or not we would have the strength had something gone wrong with our pregnancies, to then take that trauma and then use it to talk about this is wrong. What happened to me? What my state put me through is wrong, and I'm going to turn this into action, and that it's singularly Ted Cruz's fault, and we're going to make sure that he is held responsible for this. And let me make sure folks know why this is singularly Ted Cruz's fault, because he has put the judges on the district court, circuit court, and Supreme Court levels, knowing and in fact anticipating and wanting them to overturn Roe v. Wade. He's backed in primaries, Republican state legislators, knowing that they would then put in place these laws that would restrict a woman's right to choose so severely in Texas. He called for and celebrated the Dobbs decision. He called it a massive victory. Well, you heard from Kate Cox there. Kate is a friend of mine. She and her husband are pregnant again. They're due in January, just in time to have seen us have a massive victory over Ted Cruz. And that's what we're going to do for Texas women, for Texas families. We're going to restore this fundamental right. We're going to codify Roe v. Wade, and we're going to make sure that no one ever again in this country decides that they think that they can stand in these most important moments of people's lives and take away a fundamental right and put themselves over doctors and women and then making their own healthcare decisions.
What's that website where people can find out more about you before the election?
Of course, it's colinallred.com, and I hope that folks, especially in Texas, make sure that you check your voter registration status. We have our voter registration deadline coming up. We have early voting starting on October 21st. Make sure you make a plan to vote. Get your friends to vote. Come volunteer with us. Be a part of our Texas offense plan to get out the vote and knock on doors, make phone calls. We have been a state that's been a non-voting state. We haven't been a red state. We've been a non-voting state. We can change that. And when we do, it's not going to be a win for me or for the Democratic Party. It's going to be a win for Texas and this country.
Thank you so much, Congressman Colin Allred. Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 4 million subscribers this month. Have a good one.
Hey, Meidas Mighty. Love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.